Good morning, folks, and welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT for short. We're an agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation, something we may discuss a little further in a few minutes. I'm here with my guests during this program, Mel Meinhardt. Mel is the chair of Friends of the Commodore Trail. Mel, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Javier. We're happy to be here.
Thank you. And I should say also that we are broadcasting live out of Miami Community Newspaper Studios here in South Miami. And we want to thank Miami Community News for producing and hosting the program, as always. So thank you all. So Mel, tell me a little bit about Friends of the Commodore Trail. What is the Commodore Trail? And then what is the Friends of?
Hey, great question, Javier. The Commodore Trail is actually the county's, it may be the county's oldest trail. It was designated in 1969 as a commemorative path that goes from Cocoa Plum Circle in the south and connects all the way up, all the roads and sidewalks that go through Coral Gables and Coconut Grove, city of Miami, reaches all the way to Rickenbacker Causeway at Alice Wainwright Park. So 55 years ago, the county had the great foresight to designate a trail. And today it's become what it is completely unknown and a collection of potholes and death-defying crosswalks that the Friends of the Commodore Trail a few years ago were organized to be a partner and a private partner that would help the governments, and there are three of them, that's the Gables, the county, and the city of Miami, kind of mobilize and stay focused on the safety and connecting all these pathways. Because if something isn't safe, then nobody's going to use it. And if nobody uses it, they can't get to and from work and schools and things like that. So we were formed just a few years ago with that idea. That's great.
And actually, you're joining other Friends of Trails organizations, all of whom are doing similar work. So Ludlam Trail, you have the Underline and some others. Do you all kind of work in concert with each other?
We do. We're really big fans. We're really big fans of the Underline and what Meg Daly has done. We look at the experience of Ludlam and try to learn from them, and not just in here in Miami. We've also visited, whether it's the Katy Trail in Dallas, the Beltline in Atlanta. We learned an awful lot about Lakeside, Chicago, Highline in Manhattan, all of these trails. We don't invent anything, Javier. What we do try to do is listen and learn from others so we can try to bring those practices here to Miami.
And you already referenced a couple of examples, but how does the Commodore Trail fit within the larger transportation and mobility system? What other trails are you connecting to and where? And what transit are you connecting to?
Great, important question here, because the Commodore Trail is almost the missing link in a lot of the Miami Loop, which is the broader coalition of trails and how they all fit together. So on the south side, I already mentioned Cocoa Plum Circle, and that's where the Commodore Trail directly connects into the old Cutler Trail, which then goes way to the south after that. Then if you follow along the Commodore Trail, which is really all the waterfront roads through the rest of through the northern part of the Gables, the city of Miami, and then down South Bayshore. 5 miles later, we connect to the Underline at Vizcaya the Vizcaya station, and then we connect with the Rickenbacker Causeway Trail, which you may know is the most heavily used pedestrian and bicycle path in the county. So that puts us right in there. So that's how we connect to the other bicycle and pedestrian pathways, but then that also puts us really close to or connecting to the transportation hubs, right, like the Metro Rail, for example.
And I should have asked this probably earlier on, but Commodore, who's the Commodore in Commodore Trail? What's it named after?
That's Commodore Ralph Monroe.
Okay. Little history lesson here for everybody.
A little history lesson, and Commodore Ralph Monroe was one of the first 2 or 3 pioneers of Miami. So he's the guy who physically built with his hands the Barnacle, which is the house at the Barnacle State Park, right in the middle of Coconut Grove. He and his peers, the Peacock family, for example, in Coconut Grove, they were there and they helped folks like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas get started, and the trail itself, his property is on, or the Commodore Trail now covers what was well before it an Indian hunting trail. So this is like among the oldest historic remnants of Miami.
So I just had the honor of co-lecturing with Dr. George yesterday on the history of transportation in Miami. So this would have been a great part of that conversation. I'm sure we could do a lot on that.
We can. It's been fascinating as a 25-year resident of Miami, knowing nothing coming down here. I have really had my eyes open when I start to learn the history of all the transportation, how people got around. That's really helped me understand and actually calm down a lot, because now I understand the context of the changes I'm seeing.
Probably more so than most people, because like you, most people here are transplants from somewhere else, but not everyone, appreciates the history or digs into it. So I appreciate you doing that. So speaking of your history, tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do for a living, and ultimately how did that kind of segue into what you're doing now with Commodore Trail?
Oh, yeah. So I was trained as an engineer at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, served on submarines in the Arctic for 5 years or so, and then continued on in federal service. So for me personally, serving others in the greater good is just part of what goes on. But continuing then, I have the good fortune now of being retired, and so I can devote a lot of my time here to this. So trying to use that experience of engineering and whatever to help out. I'm not a civil engineer, mind you, but we like to listen and learn and then just describe.
And are you a cyclist? Like, what drew you to the Commodore Trail in particular?
Yeah, so I'm not a cyclist, nor am I a runner, and I seldom walk. So I'm like,
but you love trail mix. And I'm trying to find the connection.
But what I do care about, what I did find out is that when you think about communities and you think about what brings people together and what they care about most in life, it's really the idea of being close to each other. So, for example, we held little surveys about neighborhoods and what people want. Really tiny surveys that didn't mention anything at all. What do you want in life? Do you want safety, or do you want better jobs, or anything like that? And the thing we found out, what people want most in life in this little survey, is they wanted potluck dinners.
Okay.
And we went, what is going on here? Why is potluck showing up at the top? And we poked in on it, and we found out what they're really looking for is a way to connect with their neighbors. And that's what places like the Commodore Trail, the Ludlam Trail, the underlying parks, dogs, all do, is they give people a venue in which they can go out in a non-confrontational way and see the people that they're living around. And that's when the light went off for us. And we said, or went on for us, and we said, oh, so the Commodore Trail is much more than a bicycle path that connects transportation. All in for that. It's more than a walkway where you can get your steps in. It's also really a thing that connects the community. And then we went, now we get it, because in the Commodore Trail's place, we have what, a dozen schools, 11 parks in this 5.5 miles. One of our people counted up, and every day 3,513 children and their families and their parents and their dogs, they all come to the Commodore Trail to get to school. And we looked at that problem, we said, oh my gosh, if we had a safer way for the children to get on bicycles or walk to the schools, the dozen schools that are on there, what would that do to traffic? Well, you know the answer, right? It would
get people out of cars.
It would get people out of the cars. And so we started to poke in on that and said, oh, so people want to meet each other. They want to socialize with each other. They want their children to be safe, to go to school, so they don't have to drive them back and forth. Boy, this is a virtuous circle. That's why I'm in it.
I think that's great. And I totally agree with you. And I found that, especially post-pandemic, during and post-pandemic, people really started to appreciate that, right? And want that and need it, that connectivity to their neighbors and to their community. We've taken it for granted. And I think the pandemic really kind of opened our eyes to how much we want that and need it as human beings, right?
Right. And when you look at the long-term plans for the county, and you know this better than any of us here, about like the rapid transit zones and the corridors, people want to be close to their transportation hubs because it makes life so much easier, right?
Easier, and at the end of the day, it's better for you physically and spiritually, right? So I found, I commuted to work by bike for a number of years and gotten away from it, unfortunately, and I'd like to get back to it. But, I lost 30 pounds doing it, doing nothing else but riding my bike to work, lost 30 pounds. And I just felt better, mentally, physically, so that's yet another advantage, right?
I'm going to use you as my role model now.
Well, don't use me, because since I stopped biking to work, I've gained all that weight back and then some. So maybe I'm not the best role model quite yet, but I appreciate that. So you talked about the existing Commodore trails having a lot of issues, right? Potholes and whatnot. So what's being done by Friends, by the city of Miami, by the county to fix and or enhance the trail?
Yeah, we have to look at this as a really a long-term project. There is, especially in Coconut Grove, because as we mentioned here, Coconut Grove has deep and complex histories that are really important to respect.
Right.
If we think about it as an asphalt pavement problem, then we're missing the boat here. So the Friends try to look at the entirety of the project, which is 5.5 miles, probably will take about $55 million or something like that when you look at all the changes. But it's really not a single project. It's more like 20 little projects that are unified or will be unified by a master plan. And so the county and the city have a few years ago agreed that the city of Miami would lead on the development of a master plan, a unifying concept that would then guide all these other little projects forward. Otherwise, it just becomes this big patchwork. Now, that's not to say we're going to end up with a monolithic single design, because of all the places in Miami-Dade County that are a patchwork, and appropriately so, Coconut Grove is that. Yeah. That's why people live there.
Neighborhoods within neighborhood. Right?
Neighborhoods within neighborhoods. If the road's too narrow here, the road's too narrow. Yeah. If we can't have this, we can't have that. But we do have that tree, and we're going to save that tree. And let's not forget also that we're right down there on the water. So when we work with Waterkeeper, for example, and the great work that
another great nonprofit. Yeah.
Another great nonprofit, or Tropical Audubon Society, or all the others, we see the Commodore Trail as a corridor, and it's like the last defense before the pollutants or anything that's uphill makes its way downhill, which says, so we need to do more than think about just a bike path. We need to think about what's under the ground. How does it get there? What are we using for the surfaces? Are there outfalls coming from the stormwater system that maybe we can take advantage? When I was talking with Commissioner Regalado and her staff a year or so ago, we go, the sewer systems and the septic tanks of the South Grove, maybe, those ought to be put on, they told me they ought to be put on the county sewer system. Well, yeah, but that's an opportunity to improve the Commodore Trail as well, and vice versa. So all these projects, one hand washes the other.
So one of the projects I'm aware of where some of this is coming together is the South Bayshore Drive reconstruction. How does that kind of support or perhaps impact, positively or negatively, the Commodore Trail? I mean, I imagine you're working with, I don't know if that's a city project or county project or both, but how does that kind of dovetail into that project?
Yeah, so the South Bayshore Drive project is the leading project. That project has been in the works for jeepers, on and off for almost 2 decades, unfortunately. And right front and center, that is a transportation continuity project, because that is the low ground in Coconut Grove. And so that means sunny day flooding. And when you look at sea level rise effects on that, it's really important that we keep South Bay Shore up and dry so that cars and all forms of transportation can make it through. And
a lot of cars do go through there. I mean, that's kind of an alternative to US 1, connecting all those communities along the coast.
Bite your tongue, but yes, that's how it's used.
That's how it's used. I know most would prefer people stick to US 1 and leave that road for local circulation.
But that's the way it is, and we can all want that, but we all have to share, and we all have to share our uses. But that's a really great project. So the county has stepped out in front, and we've been privileged to see the underground design, and it looks terrific. And so now we're trying to balance, or help them balance, all the other competing demands. And Lord knows there's a lot of competing demands. Sure. We try to look at 4 lenses when we think about projects like anywhere in this. And that's not just the transportation, but also health, heritage, nature, and neighbors. Health, because of all the reasons we've talked about, and your 30 pounds plus or minus, give or take, and my need for it. Health, to get people out, the safety, so people feel safe that their kids can go to school, so that their dogs are safe, and everybody has every place to do that. Health, heritage, not only for all the history we've talked about, but also for the future heritage. What are we leaving behind? Because this project, the Commodore Trail, will define Coconut Grove for easily the next 75 or 100 years. It will be the city, or it will be the village of Coconut Grove, no question. That's the heritage front and back. Nature, we've talked about water keepers, for example, and everyone pretty much agrees that without the trees, Coconut Grove is just coconuts, I guess. So
those come from trees as well. So
those come from trees as well.
Really, there's nothing to it.
But I guess the call to action there is to take extraordinary measures for to keep the canopy going. So with Dade Heritage Trust and other tree-centric and tree-forward organizations, we're trying to be out there and making sure the best practices are. Heck, I just visited Atlanta here over the summer vacation, so I could see how they are using techniques to bring their pedestrian and bicycle paths over the roots of trees and keep them safe. And finally, neighbors, and I think we covered that too. Everybody has to have a voice in here. So as a result of that, the Friends, we don't really have a strong position on anything except that everybody gets a voice. We want everyone included here.
So on that point, if someone is listening and they want to get involved, right? I think you've made an excellent case as to why this trail is important, not just for mobility and connectivity, but really as a central amenity and community space for Coconut Grove and the surrounding community. So if I'm one of those folks living in those communities and I want to get involved, volunteer, donate, how can I do so?
Great. Well, the website is commodoretrail.us.
Okay.
Commodore Trail US, not the com piece, because we've been, what's that, trolled? Hacked?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
CommodoreTrail.us, and we have a great website, and we've got a big team of volunteers that find their sweet spot, and we make it possible for them to shine. Pretty much everything we do, Javier, everything we do is the result of somebody saying, hey, I've got a good idea. How about we do this? And we go, okay, we're behind you.
And if you know anything about the Grove, folks, I mean, this is a community of passionate, civically minded, involved people, but people who also like to party, right? So I imagine these meetings and all your activities are also a lot of fun. As you said, potlucks and just being kind of a place for people to connect.
Terrific. For example, the Secret Garden Tour, that's us. The history tours in Coconut Grove, again, that's us. We don't put our name up front. One of our favorites is the is the Only in the Grove dog show, which is a tongue-in-cheek dog show. So if you have a dog that you look like or it looks like you, there's a category for that.
It's amazing how that happens. It really does. It's like more often than not, people do look like their dogs. I've never.
And if you can convince our 9- and 8-year-old judges that you're the one, then boy, the blue ribbon is yours.
That's great. We'll have to find a bulldog for me. Or hairless chihuahua. All right. So thank you for everything you do with the Commodore Trail. It really seems like a great organization and a great project. And I wish you a lot of luck in that. But I want to go back to something you said earlier because I'm interested in this. Is you served in the Navy. So thank you for your service, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you for paying your taxes. I appreciate that.
You're assuming I do? No, of course. I pay my taxes. My pleasure. And but you also went to the U.S. Naval Academy, and I believe has stayed involved with them over the years in some capacity. So, talk to me about your naval career. What did you do, and how are you associated with the Academy?
Sure. Like many folks, I went to Annapolis as a young man, a 4-year college, fantastic engineering and liberal arts education. Then went on board submarines, nuclear-powered submarines under the Arctic for 5 years or so, worked with fantastic, wonderful people. And then I got out because of family circumstances, but I stayed in the reserves for another 18 years until I retired as a reserve officer. Wow. I have had the good privilege of staying involved in the alumni organizations for that to help others find their way in there, and serve as a trustee for the Naval Academy Alumni Association at a national level. That has really opened my eyes to the opportunities and the variety of ways. Many folks don't know, Javier, that the Naval Academy, West Point, Air Force Academy, Merchant Marine, et cetera, they have a mandate by law to bring folks from every part of the country, every congressional district, every geography, and bring them together. For me personally, I think that is a real big contributor to increasing the dialogue in a democracy. We want our military to look like our people and our people to look like the military. It's just important. And that kind of variety opens up opportunities for folks down here in South Florida, because many of us don't think about the opportunities that are available for our children for great service.
Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you again. I'm fascinated by the Navy. Between watching Top Gun and my other favorite movie growing up, Hunt for Red October, I envisioned myself serving in a submarine, and even, as I think I told you, I toured the USS Miami during Fleet Week many years ago. So, but man, those are tight quarters. Once I hopped on board, I thought maybe this isn't for me. I just felt a little claustrophobic.
My wife loves the story where people ask, well, how long can you stay out? And the answer is until the food runs out.
Wow.
And so we start by lining the floors with cans of food, and you actually sleep on the food until you eat it down. But it's a lot of fun for a young man, not for an old guy like me now.
Yeah, and a true brotherhood, I'm sure, in tight quarters with how many service men did you?
About 120 people, and now women also serve on submarines as well.
But at your time, it was
only men.
Yeah, of course.
It was only men.
Well, that's really fascinating, and I'd love to speak more about that aspect of your life. But unfortunately, we're out of time. We're down to a couple of minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our audience or like to discuss?
Not to say, but I would like to invite you and subsequent broadcasts to tell us, the Friends of the Commodore Trail, more about what CITT does.
Of course.
Because that's an important part that we don't probably understand well enough.
And that's part of why I do this, right? To inform the folks listening about what we do and the projects and services we're helping to fund. Incidentally, we didn't discuss this, but I do believe there are surtax dollars, half-penny dollars, in the Commodore Trail. But the city of Miami, I think, used some of its dollars, and some of the surtax dollars that were within the control of the then District 7 Commissioner, Xavier Suarez, I believe. He also provided some funding towards that project. So we're invested in it. We hope it succeeds, and we will continue to support you.
Well, thank you. I hope that the staff will bring out the checkbook right here and now, and you can continue writing those checks. Thank you very much, Javier.
Happy to do it. And again, thank you not only for being my guest today and for your service, but for what you're doing with the Commodore Trail. Please
Thank you, sir.
keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. We invite you to join us every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m., broadcasting live here out of the wonderful studios brought to us by community newspapers. If you're interested in learning more about the CITT, per Mel's interest, please visit our website. We're at miamidade.gov/CITT. In addition to information, you could also apply to become a member of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust. We have several vacancies on our trust now, and so if you're interested in joining us and being a part of the solution, please visit our website and submit your application. And finally, we also have opportunities for you to serve as a CITT ambassador. These are folks who ride the transit system on a regular basis and really act as our eyes and ears on the system. You submit a daily survey, you then get points in exchange for submitting that survey, and you could exchange those points for rewards. So great program, and we're actively recruiting ambassadors as we speak. So please visit our website, be a part of the solution, explore the Commodore Trail, both physically and on their website, and be a part of their effort as well. Thank you, and see you next time.